I had no idea I was going to be recording these kinds of little breakdowns when I started the Cards of Time website. As I've started putting some things together, this stuff kind of just jumps up and grabs me, so bear with me. I hope you enjoy these because I've never heard anybody quite talk about this stuff in relation to the Wheel of Time, and I've just spent the last hour or so giggling as I've put this particular episode together. This one is about the famous five, Enid Blyton's amazing characters who became the best-selling children's book series of all time. So there must be something to the characters there, right? There's 21 books in the series, and I think I can say that this is really when I began to become interested in epic tales. I would have been around 10 years old when I moved from the fairy tale stuff of Enid Blyton to these adventures. Now, these books were already 30 years old when I started reading them. Some of you who are just getting into the Wheel of Time now can kind of relate to that. The characters are all of a similar age and they're actually siblings or cousins, and this is the basis of their connection. Just kind of like for kids who grew up in a small village and the wisdom who didn't want to go on any adventures with them. These children are allowed to go off on their own to an extent that today would totally contravene the Child Protection Act and draw intense interest from social services. As an amateur photographer myself, I'm very aware of the rule of odds, and I use it in photography as much as I can. And I'm quite certain that it also applies to successful story arcs. The rule of odds states that when you're including a group of subjects, an odd number rather than an even number will produce a more interesting and therefore a more visually pleasing composition. Now, don't get me wrong here, I'm not planning to say that the famous five are literally the Emonsfield Five and that the 21 books covers the same story arc as the Wheel of Time. I'm just going to have a little fun showing that there are particular types of characters that repeat in successful stories for all ages. And in fact, I would clearly like to just say here now that if you really want to compare the famous five to the Emonsfield Five, there is a problem, because we'll see that one character reminds us of one we know well from the Wheel of Time, but that character is not out of the Emonsfield Five. So what I am saying is that good children's stories prepare a child to recognise character traits and story arcs in more complex fantasy as they mature and expand their reading. Just as we know that Robert Jordan drew many ideas, character traits and story beats from fantasy such as Lord of the Rings and Dune, all authors draw much from all the best known myths and legends they already love from their own previous reading. So let's just jump in and let me describe each of the famous five to you from my own point of view on them. Then you can draw your own conclusions. I hope you enjoy it, whether you read these books back in the day or not. Julian. Let's start with him. Julian is described as being tall, strong, intelligent, caring, responsible and kind. He's clever and always reliable as the group leader. He's especially protective towards Anne and can almost become overbearing, pompous or even priggish. Young children often aspire to be Julian, while older readers tend to see him as a pompous ass. He shows a strong sense of the 1940s style chivalry for sure. He frequently tells the girls they can't do something simply on the basis that they're girls. He has much toe. He can seem so stern and stuck up that adult characters are frequently struck quite speechless, like when Ma and Pa Stick are left totally bewildered and a little afraid of the tall boy with the determined face. Dick has a cheeky sense of humour, but he's dependable and kind. He often seems to take a back seat in events. He's inclined to tease, but he always tries to cheer Anne up when she's upset. He can take a heroic role, using his wits to save the others. He's good at physical activities such as gymnastics, rope climbing, and boxing. He's quite good at fighting. In later books, his story arc develops more and he shows himself to be unafraid of anything that comes along and keeps a cool head. He has excellent observational skills and often relies on luck to get through some tough spots. He's the character most likely to start joking about and teasing all the others. I so clearly remember George as being my favourite character. Georgina is her birth name. She's seen as a tomboy with short cut hair wearing boys' clothes. Now remember, this was written in the 1940s. She's headstrong and courageous with a hot, fiery temper and loves being mistaken for a boy. She sees telling lies as being cowardly. She often expresses a wish to have been born a boy as she dislikes the societal expectations that have been thrust upon her as a girl. Enid Blyton herself actually says that the character was based on herself. George's loyalty is second to none, even if she can make some pretty ridiculous decisions in the face of danger. Anne is often seen being quite domestic, doing cooking and cleaning for the others, and she finds the situations they get into the most frightening. Anne does not enjoy adventures the way the others do and does not intend to embark on adventures at any time. She does let her tongue run away with her, but ultimately she is incredibly brave and resourceful. She's claustrophobic, and yet their adventures often lead them into caves, tunnels, wells and dungeons. Her bravery is incomparable. She likes things to be orderly and neat and likes to be in control. She was captain of games at school and the top of her form. She does have moments when she is seen to rear up like a tiger and put those little boys in their place. And number 5 in our famous 5 is Timothy. Now, Timothy is actually a large brown mongrel dog with a long tail. Oh, talk about Lassie, eat your heart out. Timothy is friendly, clever, affectionate, loyal, particularly to George, and provides physical protection on many adventures, and he is as gentle as he is dangerous. He's brave and protective, and he shows this beautiful kind of animal magic in that he understands all that the children say to him and can respond to situations they get into intelligently, often saving the day. His POV is often used in the books to show the intense internal thought processes that he possesses. While the stories don't in any way match up to the story of the fight against the forces of light and dark that we get in The Wheel of Time, they are characterised by the courage and determination of our beloved 5 to outwit thieves, smugglers, and even kidnappers. They follow some years of growth and development of the children as the stories progress. And they set up children readers to recognise and enjoy all kinds of fantasy adventures and characters in more mature settings. There have been numerous interpretations and adaptations of the Famous Five over the last 80 years, including continuation novels, cinema films, stage plays, 2 television series, and a Disney cartoon series. Personally, I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to read these books as a child and develop an appetite for fantasy that eventually led me to the Wheel of Time.